There we go. Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity. We're speaking about a very important topic today, something that's important to me, something that's important to everybody. And I want to personally thank the Utah State Firefighters Association for giving me this opportunity, for Chief Chatburn, for Captain Howard, and all of St. George Fire, and all the first responders here in the beautiful state of Utah. So my plan for this session is first half hour, 45 minutes, is going to be about me, some of the calls that I've run, a little bit of my journey in the fire service, a little bit about what coaching is, how it can benefit you, and then we're going to take a break. After the break, we're going to come back, and it's not about me anymore, it's about everybody in this room. We've actually got some coaching exercises that we can go through. I've got some handouts. We can go through some really awesome, really great self-awareness tools that you can use at any point, at any time, and it'll kind of whet your appetite a little bit for what we do as first responder coaches. So why am I here? That's a good question. So mental health is the greatest single challenge that faces the fire service. And it's in every service. It's an epidemic, pandemic, whatever you want to call it. But I am part of a team of former and current first responders and first responder spouses that are trained, we're accessible, and we're eager to support your fire department family. And what I'm asking for today is the ability to make a connection. Help connect my resources, my amazing coaches, with those that need it. So, in 2021, that was the last year I was able to get some really good statistics. And unfortunately, across the nation, there were 158 police officers and 48 firefighters that died in the line of duty. This is a dangerous profession. We all know that when we come to work, there's a chance that we can be placed in serious harm's way, but we accept those responsibilities in a calculated manner. But unfortunately, at the exact same time period in 2019, more than 200 police officers and 133 firefighters committed suicide. So think about that for a second. As a chief officer, as a company officer, we give our members the training, the knowledge, the equipment to be able to step in front of harm's way, to protect the public, and to protect your brother and sister next to you. And the greatest danger that we face is when you leave the station and you go home. And so even though those numbers are terrible, the CDC estimates that those are even further underreported, because the way that we report these numbers changes from municipality to municipality, from state to state, and what they determine is a suicide. And many first responders consider stress to just be part of the job and feel that they cannot or should not talk about the traumatic events and the occupational stressors. So, stealing a line from Covey, let's start with the end in mind. So, I hope by the end of this presentation and the end of this time that we have together, that you'll see that coaching can provide the tools to manage the stressors that first responders experience, not only on the job, but also at home. And when we reduce stressors, your entire organization and the entire profession will notice fewer unnecessary conflicts, higher morale, improved performance, and fewer sick days. I mean, think about it. If you can partner with us and provide coaching for your agency, and you could just save 1 or maybe 2 mental health days that somebody might take during the month, I mean, you're going to be so far ahead of your return on investment for what it is that we offer. And we have greater energy and focus. And that's not me saying that. That's the IAFC and a commission report that was done in 2021, the Yellow Ribbon Report. I have several copies. Let's see, where'd they end up? And I can pass these around if you guys would like. I'll start one on this side. And it is a comprehensive evaluation of what it is that first responders face. And they give a lot of amazing recommendations. And a lot of the recommendations that they offer is something that we participate in, we experience as first responder coaches on a daily basis in helping our membership move through those challenges. So a little bit about me. My name's Don. Nice to meet you. I am a 4th generation firefighter. I knew very early on in my life that I wanted to be a firefighter. I grew up just south of San Francisco, a little town called Half Moon Bay. If you guys are any surfers, there's Mavericks out there. Grew up small town. My dad was a commercial fisherman, and my mom, she was a professional wedding photographer. And I was such a nerd that I stapled a red fire hat to my cap and gown when I graduated high school. I even had a little blinky light on there, but they didn't like that. And so my dad, being a commercial fisherman, doing what he does, when I graduated high school, I was on a plane to Naknek, Bristol Bay, Alaska, and I was on a commercial fishing boat for a month. And I grew up really fast, and I found out really quickly that I didn't want to be a commercial fisherman and that I really wanted to focus myself and dedicate myself to become a firefighter. When I came back from Bristol Bay, Alaska, I immediately joined the volunteer firefighters in my local community. And at that point, I started my education. I got my EMT basic, went through the Firefighter One Academy, got my associate's degree in fire technology, went off to paramedic school, and then I immediately started working as a paramedic in the San Jose area, South Bay area in Santa Clara County, and grew up a lot really fast. Shortly after getting hired with AMR, I was able to get hired back full time. And that's my dad there with me, and it was great to be able to work with him. One of my favorite memories that I'll ever keep with me is riding the ambulance with my dad, and so that was pretty awesome. Shortly after working with Half Moon Bay, I had an opportunity to shift over to a larger city with more opportunity, and I got hired with the Alameda City Fire Department over in the East Bay, a little island on the East Bay. I was there for about 4 years when I was introduced to Southern Utah. My mother-in-law bought a home out in Hurricane, and we loved Southern Utah. We loved Hurricane, and I wanted to have an opportunity to raise my family in Southern Utah because it wasn't like anything that we had found in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm glad we kind of got out when we did. So I started testing. I looked around for employment, and the first job that bounced back to me was the City of Henderson Fire Department. I went through the process. We got hired. I started the academy. We started building a home, and now my family and I, we live in Dixie Springs, right next to Sand Hollow Lake in beautiful Hurricane, and we just absolutely love it there. And so I've been with Henderson, like I said, for about 11 and a half years, or coming up on 11 years. I'm assigned to our technical hazardous materials response unit at Station 98 on C shift. I'm a firefighter paramedic, and I'm also a paramedic preceptor. I'm married. I've got 3 daughters, and my wife and I, we're high school sweethearts. So, why did I become a life coach? Why did I kind of shift gears 22 years into my career and want to become a first responder to the first responders? Well, first, I've always felt like I've been an informal leader. I have always felt like I'm a mentor, a paramedic preceptor for decades, and someone that everyone knew that they could talk to. One of my early influences with life coaching was Jody Moore. She's pretty popular in Utah. My wife participated in her program, and I started listening to her coaching calls. And you could change the names and change the faces, but it was exactly what we were dealing in the fire service. You know, this guy said this, and this guy didn't say that, which means this. And we just have that whole, mind stuff when you're stuck in a station for 24, 48, 72 hours. And I just saw so much application to changing the way we think about things, which changes our results, which is basically the premise of life coaching. And I attended, so about 6 months ago, I went through an intensive 6-month program. It was very time consuming, and it required a lot of reflection on myself. The Life Coach School certified me as a certified coach, and I connected with Jennifer Anderson, who is the CEO of First Responder Coaching. She is the wife of a police officer on the East Coast. Her husband faced his own challenges in the job, which introduced her to coaching, which then she started helping other coaches, and we've got an amazing company on our hands with over 25 certified coaches that are ready to coach right now. So it seems like every time we meet new people, as soon as you say, hey, I'm in the fire service, I'm a firefighter, what do they say? What's the first question that people ask you when you tell them you're a fireman? Worst thing you ever seen. Awesome. What else? Come on. This is an elder's quorum. Let's go. What else? What else you got? What other questions do people ask as soon as they tell you that you're in the fire service?
Where? How long?
Perfect. The basic demographics. The ones that I always seem to get is, wow, that's so cool. Or, I bet you have some stories. And what's the craziest call that you've ever been on? Have you ever rescued a cat out of a tree? Or is it just like on TV? So I've gone through a couple iterations of my typical response to the question, and I've kind of landed on, you won't be in this job long before you see things that you'll never forget. And for me in my career, that's absolutely true. So I want to talk about a couple of the most difficult calls that I've been on in 22 years as a first responder. The first one was very, very early in my career. I was posted up on an ambulance in the Great Mall of Milpitas out in San Jose, the East Bay area. And we got dispatched to a single vehicle motor vehicle accident on the right-hand shoulder. So as was normal for us, we got en route and we beat the engine to the scene. And as I approached the scene, I saw there was some pretty heavy damage on the windshield, but I didn't really get a good picture of what the patient would look like. And as I approached the patient, I saw that he had some pretty major head injury. And as I opened the door, he slid to the side, his head turned over, and about 3/4 of his head fell off the side and got all over me. An object had bounced several times on the freeway, went right through the windshield, right through 1/4 of his head, and ended up in the back of his pickup truck. When I made initial contact with the patient, he was breathing, he had a pulse, and we needed to get going. So we packaged the patient as quickly as we could. We got in the back of the ambulance, started going code 3 of the trauma center, and it seemed like nothing went right. I couldn't get an IV because their blood pressure was so low. His teeth were clenched. I couldn't advance a advanced airway. And then as soon as we pulled up to the hospital, he went into cardiac arrest. So we got the patient into the hospital. We changed over the patient to the staff. And as you can imagine, I had to change all of my uniform, and we had a lot of cleanup to do. And while we were outside the ambulance bay, I saw a young woman carrying a daughter and had another daughter in her hand. And she was running to the emergency room. And at the time, I didn't think anything of it. But then once I kind of got myself situated, every time the ambulance bay door would open and close, I would hear her screaming and crying. And that was her husband. And in a blink of an eye, her entire life had changed. And I was the one that brought her husband to the hospital. And that one stuck with me for a long time. I had a call at Starbucks. We had a call for stage for scene secure. So we're staged. They say, hey, send in 1 paramedic. I didn't know what that meant at the time. But grabbed my gear, heading forward. I'm the 1 paramedic that's walking in, being ushered in by the police department. I turn the corner in the Starbucks, and there's a gentleman that had brought a handgun into the bathroom. He put it to his head and pulled the trigger. And I wasn't prepared. I wasn't ready for that. And still to this day, when I walk in those bathrooms that kind of match that description, you've got the sink and the mirror in front of you. You've got your toilet, your handicap bar. It's there. It's just a flash. And the last one happened last year. This was a call that I ran with my current crew in my current city. The call came out as an unknown problem. The notes on dispatch were just send an ambulance, send an ambulance. That was all they had. So our ladder truck started heading that way. I was at the hospital. I saw the notes. I added myself to the call. And on the way there, we got an update that there was someone in cardiac arrest. And so we turned the corner, and there the Henderson Police Department, they were on the ground doing CPR on a 12-year-old boy. The 12-year-old boy was doing distance learning. He was doing a Zoom call. He had gone into his room. He closed the door, and he didn't come down for lunch. And something happened. They don't even know what happened. But he tied a belt around his neck, and he hung himself in his closet. And then we had to go to work. And so that was definitely difficult for me because my daughter was also 12 years old at the time. But by far, the most difficult call that I've been on was with the Alameda Fire Department. With the Alameda Fire Department, I was a firefighter paramedic. I was a rescue swimmer, and we had some budget issues, and so they decided to defund our water rescue program, and a policy was put in place that we weren't to enter the water. And I'm not going to stand here and say that I'm going to second guess the policy that was in place or the incident commanders that were on scene. They had a policy in place for a reason, and we followed that policy. But unfortunately, on Memorial Day, that was put to test.
With all due respect here, why not say, to heck with the policy? We've got an emergency on our hands. A man's life is at stake. We're going to deal with the paperwork and the legal fallout later.
And that's understandable, and I can certainly understand that. And if our people had entered the water and said, we have to do this because there's a situation that presents itself where we can make a difference, then I wouldn't have an issue with that. What I am saying though is that, the policy that was put into place is changed, and there won't be any question about that in the future. Under the same circumstances, again though, with a crime scene, with an individual who could be unstable and potentially dangerous, we would have to take that into consideration before we attempted a rescue.
As a firefighter, isn't that part of the job? It's a dangerous situation. We might meet up with somebody who's dangerous, but we're going to take the chance anyway because we've committed ourselves to saving lives?
Absolutely. And I know, Suzanne, that those firefighters who were on the beach yesterday, they were incredibly frustrated by this whole situation because I know them. They wanted to get in, they want to take action, they want to do their jobs, and they feel like they're handcuffed. So it's really an untenable situation for our people.
If this was your father who was in the water, who was drowning, would you say this is a frustrating situation? Wouldn't you get those crews in the water to save him?
So the photo that was on the BlackBerry, I was the second firefighter that was in that photo in the background. I was the first emergency responder to arrive at the beach that day, establish command, and I saw a man in his 50s who apparently had called 911, and he said, "I'm going to walk in the San Francisco Bay and drown myself." He hung up the phone, he walked in the San Francisco Bay, and he drowned himself. And so he just kept walking and walking and walking further and further out. And what is typical for a lot of beaches in the San Francisco Bay is that it stayed very shallow for a very long time. And so I sat there almost for 2 hours and watched a man commit suicide. I was a water rescue swimmer. I had a paddleboard, I had a life preserver, I had a wetsuit, I had all the equipment that I needed to effect a rescue 4 blocks away. It would have probably taken us 15 minutes to grab our gear and to just do something. But the decision was made at the time. Like I said, I'm not second guessing the decision, but as the first responder that was on scene, those 2 hours felt like 2 months. And eventually the person rolled over face down into the bay. He drowned, and the wind and the tides pushed his body back to the beach. We retrieved his body, we started a resuscitation, we took him to the hospital, and he passed away. So that was bad enough. But then we woke up in the morning, and we're on every single news network across the country. Alameda police and firefighters, I allowed a person to drown under my watch. Police and firefighters' handling of a suicide is unacceptable. And even putting this slide presentation together as early as a year ago, I hope they're still having horrific nightmares, but I doubt they ever did. They probably laughed when they got back to the station. And my favorite, it's called "Make Up Some Excuse," because we didn't intervene and we watched this man drown. So I had a close friend at the time, Jason. He said it felt like people just came up to us and tore the public servant, tore that hero badge right off of our back, and we were just a burden to our city. So the gentleman, the ocean, he committed suicide, and I've had a suicide in my department, the Henderson Fire Department. His name was Robbie Pettingill. Robbie was awesome. I had the opportunity to cross paths with Robbie early in my career. We worked at the same station, and we would exchange shift frequently. And one morning, I came to work, and Robbie had this big brown panel van with this massive American flag off of the back of it. And so I brought my gear in the first time. I dropped it off. I go back to get my gear the second time, and there's a homeless man with Robbie's flag walking down the road. I'm like, "Hey, Robbie, some guy's got your flag." So Robbie, in his cowboy boots, his skinny jeans, and his tank top, starts running after the homeless guy. And he gets about a block. The guy sees him coming, or probably hears the clippity-cloppity of his cowboy boots. He throws his flag to the side, rolls up in a ball, and says, "Don't hurt me, don't hurt me." And that was just Robbie. He was just a character. But Robbie faced a lot of challenges. And he made a lot of progress, and then he backtracked. And unfortunately, it became too much for him.
35-year-old firefighter Robbie Pettingill felt the impact of the more difficult calls, struggling with depression issues, but then fighting back to health.
That's my fire chief.
September 17th, he took his life. His own crew responded, and the whole department is now feeling the blow.
That was a very difficult night for the Houston Fire Department.
The pain even greater because just 4 months before that, Robbie's father also took his life.
That is the extended sad story, the rest of the story, is that Robbie's father was also a firefighter and actually worked for us for 22 years.
So think about it. The guys that you love, the guys that you trust, the guys that have your back every single day that you go to work, and one of them has to stay home, and then you have to go run that cardiac arrest, that intentional successful suicide. Those guys on that crew, none of my calls can hold a candle to what those guys are currently dealing with and have had to deal with. And as you said, as my chief said, his dad was also a fire captain that I work with, and 4 months prior to this, prior to the event, he had also taken his own life. So Paul Combs, he's an amazing artist. He's known worldwide for art in the fire service, and we must change the stigma and the culture of the fire service. Seeking help is not a sign of weakness. You know, I love that, you know, you're sitting in the back of the truck, everyone's quiet or just talking about their day, you know, hey, I went to the lake, all that kind of stuff. Very seldomly is somebody going to say, hey, I've been thinking about suicide. Please help. So they did a lot of studies, a lot of surveys. They're tearing through the data of what's going on. What is causing more people to die of suicide than at the result of their profession? And they said 58% reported stigma-related barriers to care. 44% they didn't want to be treated by others. I mean, if you root for the wrong football team, you're going to get treated by others. They didn't want to feel weak. They didn't want to have a harmed reputation. They didn't want to be thought less of others. They feared embarrassment, and they didn't want to be blamed for their own feelings. And so that literature that I'm passing out, it's a phenomenal read. And my favorite quote from there is that we must improve our focus on responders' emotional wellness as an industry. We spend so much time helping and saving others, but we often forget to focus on one another. As you know, first responders not only have normal life stressors, but they also have additional stressors from their public safety role. And that is absolutely true. So, as a result of the Yellow Ribbon Report, they have some recommendations. The first is a peer support program. And over and over again, I hear amazing stories of peer support groups. And we would kind of like to think of ourselves as a professional peer support group. Employee assistance programs, chaplaincy programs, professional counseling, and national organizational resources. There's a lot of resources that are out there, but in that moment, there seems to be a gap in between what we currently need right here at 9:12 in the morning and what we actually have available to us. And so the report suggests 7 approaches or tools, what they call antidotes, to mitigate the effects of behavioral wellness issues. The first one is resilience. So resilience enables people to get through difficult situations and experience personal growth that can improve their life. And learning the thoughts, behaviors, and actions will fortify resistance, and they'll help the communities and the departments that they serve. Second is emotional intelligence, understanding your emotions. Going through this process of becoming a life coach, I had to understand my emotions. I actually have a cheat sheet on my desktop. It's a chart of emotions because I didn't know what I was feeling. I would say, yeah, I'm okay. I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm glad, I'm mad. But then as we get into that a little bit more, you know, the difference between frustrated and furious, and what kind of emotion, what kind of vibration does that cause us to have in our body? And so when first responders, especially the leaders, display the demeanor of emotional intelligence, it can become contagious. And we all know that saying, calm is contagious. You want to be the most calm person when you're walking into that scene, so you can think clearly, you can act decisively, and you can make the right call at the right time. Positive intelligence can help individuals reduce the stress by managing it in a healthy way. And we all know those individuals that manage their stresses in not healthy ways. It also teaches you how to improve your quality of your relationships, manage conflict, deal with difficult behaviors, and stop the negative self-talk. Brothers and sisters, we are our own worst nightmares when it comes to negative self-talk. We wouldn't talk to another human being on earth, the worst of the worst, the way we talk to ourselves. And sometimes just bringing that to your own attention and having that be a revelation for you can be life-changing. Relationship strengthening. It is nearly impossible to separate our personal and professional lives. I mean, how many people hang out with their guys in their crew, guys on your department on days off? Get together, go to the lake, play golf, hang out, have barbecues, all those things. We are in an industry and we're in a profession where we mingle between personal and professional all the time. Sometimes in the good ways, sometimes in the bad ways. And post-traumatic growth, which is what we hope to achieve on the other side. Those that are struggling, those that are having those challenges. As you go through those challenges, you're going to go through that healing process. And you're going to have a greater appreciation for your life and a deeper understanding of your purpose. And number 6, the tools to measure and reduce stressors. You can increase the quality of your life and live longer by successfully managing the effects of stressors in your life. Your entire organization will benefit. Everyone's been on that crew. Everyone's been in that department where you've got one guy who brings everybody down. They've got a poor attitude. They're always looking negatively. They're always saying the wrong things. They're always just bugging everybody. And if we can help those individuals, we can change the way that they're thinking about what it is that's going on in their life and in their mind, it's going to help the entire department. And as I mentioned, higher morale, improved performance, fewer sick days, and greater energy and focus. And so one of the issues that they brought up was learned helplessness. And because first responders face so many uncontrollable events, it is imperative that we learn to have some semblance of control. We desperately yearn for that element of control. I mean, we've always got those patients, right? You're like, hey, you're having a heart attack. We need to take you to the hospital. Yeah, but I need my slippers, and I need my purse, and I need my, make sure my cat has water. It's like, you need to go to the hospital, but we have to have some semblance of control. And they feel like at that point is their time to try to exert some of their resemblance of control. And it can not only have a negative impact on behavioral wellness itself, it can cause negative consequences such as anxiety and depression. Anxiety and depression are rampant. They say it's 1 in 3. I say it's probably 8 out of 10 people suffer from some form of anxiety and depression. In my school, we classify anxiety as a fear of the future and depression as a fear of the past. So if we can get to that core element of what that fear is and where it comes from, we can take care of both of those. And it can be a very quick process in some cases. So, I've been talking for a little bit here. Some participation would be awesome. So, could somebody tell me, why did you get in the fire service? Why are you here?
Because my neighbor asked me to.
Awesome. Your neighbor asked you to. What else?
Serve the community.
Serve the community. Fantastic.
My dad was a firefighter.
Your dad was a firefighter. I can relate. A couple more. Why did you get in the fire service? Why do you choose to show up and serve people? Part of the brotherhood. Absolutely. A lot of the comments that we get, because I want to help people, because I care about my community. I want to give back. I have always admired what firefighters, paramedic, police officers do for our community. And my personal favorite is I want to show up on the worst day of someone's life and do everything I can to give them the best possible outcome. But only when things go right, right? Everybody loves the high fives. Man, that was awesome. We got a quick stop on that fire. Oh, we got him out of that car super quick. You guys nailed that medical call. We're not the best at reflecting on when things go bad. So, question. So what makes this challenging? Everyone here's done CPR, right? Everyone's gone through that biannual training. We pull out the mannequin. We pull it out. We dust it off. What's the heart association change this time? Is it 1 to 5? Is it 1 to 15? Is it 30 to 2? Is it continuous? How many compressions per minute? And then we kind of toss it back in the shelf. The next video that I'm going to show is an actual cardiac arrest. If it's going to bother you, I would encourage you to avert your eyes, but it's quick and we'll make it through it. But what makes this different than this? We've got an infant. Obvious distress. They're not breathing. Doing CPR. So it's the same thing, right? No, it's obviously not the same thing. But why is it not the same thing? They were both doing CPR. They were both using the exact same technique, the same depth of compressions, the same rate. So why is CPR on a mannequin different than doing CPR on a real person? Emotions, absolutely. What else? What makes it different?
I'd say there's probably 80% of the people in here that have kids.
100%.
Have had kids that young at some point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's because of our thoughts. It's the thoughts that we're thinking. And in that moment, we are flooded with thoughts. Something like, this shouldn't be happening. This is so sad. They are the same age as my kids. Mom and dad were so devastated. I wish we could have gotten there faster, or I wish we could have gotten them back. And all of those are thoughts. And the beautiful thing about life is that you can choose your thoughts. And just for a moment, try on some of these thoughts, that exact same situation. You've run that cardiac arrest. You've delivered them to the hospital. Everybody's kind of in a daze, kind of putting your gear back together. What are some of those healthy thoughts that you can have? I was the best trained and equipped responder that could have possibly responded to this call. We got there as fast as we could. We did everything possible for them. There isn't another first responder in the world that would have achieved a different outcome. And my personal favorite, I was supposed to be on that call. So whose desktop looks like this? Computers are everywhere now. We see everybody logging in their little desktops, and you got your laptops out, and it's a mess. So each one of those files, the videos, the images, they're taking up space visually, and they're also taking up space, the processing ability of your computer. It's being bogged down because each one of those little files, each one of those little things on your desktop are taking up a little bit of the computer's capacity. So did you know you could clean your desktop? There's a beautiful little thing down here. It's called the trash bin. Some people need to use it more than others. But your brain is the exact same way. I give you permission to have that trash folder of your brain. Take all those memories, those feelings, those stories that don't serve you, that are actually working against you, and throw it in the trash bin and clean your desktop. This whole process for me of becoming a life coach, of becoming a first responder coach, of doing coaching, has been pulling gobs of stuff out of my trash bin. The nice thing is, I can put it back when I'm done with it. And that's what I think separates the experience that a lot of people have with being a first responder, with being a firefighter, being a paramedic, being a police officer, hospital workers, nurses, doctors, everything else. Your ability to use that trash bin effectively could mean the difference between your happiness and your success in life. So what do? We've got a couple different ways that we can approach things. We can use our early warning systems as it relates to mental health, taking care of each other, or we've got our late reaction system. The analogy I like to use, smoke detectors. Everybody knows smoke detectors. They're devices that alert occupants to the fire and allow for early intervention. Think of how many fires are prevented because the occupants were alerted that there was something going wrong. There's an incipient stage fire. It's putting off gases. The smoke detector senses those gases, alerts the occupants. Oh, hey, my stove's on fire. Put the lid on the stove. Don't throw water on it. And they are able to detect invisible products of combustion, anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, self-harm. A lot of those are going to be invisible. We're not going to show up to work and say, yeah, I drank myself into a stupor over the 4-day. Or, I thought about grabbing a gun. Or, I almost just swerved into traffic. How's your day? Probably not a conversation that we're going to have, but in the right environment, with the right assistance, the right fostering, we have that ability to have those conversations in an effective way. And let's contrast that with a sprinkler head. So sprinklers are activated when the fusible link, when the bulb gets a certain temperature. But a lot of things in the building have to be on fire prior to the sprinkler system being activated. It's a delayed action system. And when it releases its agent, sometimes it's a false alarm. Causes a lot of damage. It's a lot of truck work. And unfortunately, sprinklers are only activated after the fire has grown to a dangerous size. So, think about it. Your own personal agencies, your own personal departments. Do you have sprinklers or do you have smoke detectors? So an example of smoke detectors would be mentoring. I love being a mentor. That's my favorite position in the fire service. There's no paperwork, and it's a lot more fun than precepting and probationary stuff. So you just get to go and you get to develop that new person to help share your love for helping people in the fire service. Guidance from your supervisors, peer coaching, and professional coaching are all examples of smoke detectors. And then we've got our sprinkler systems. We have your personal clinicians, your psychiatrists, your psychologists, your personal doctors, your city and department physicians, employee assistance programs. Some of them work really, really well. Other times people fall through the cracks. If you're depending on your EAP program or an emergency department or a non-voluntary inpatient psychiatric services to turn somebody around, there's a good chance they're probably not going to make it back to the floor. They're probably not going to make it back to the shift if you wait that long. So, I love this analogy. First responders have been called industrial athletes. We work our butt off. We get out there. I feel bad for wildland firefighters. I run 15, 20 calls a day on the ambulance, and I still would rather do that than chase fire 35 miles into the brush. I spent my time there, and it is butt-kicking work. I have a ton of respect for wildland guys. So, 2019, NFL added team psychologists to supplement the 10 other team coaches. And what I like to say is that it takes mental health out of the shadows and elevates the clinician as an important part of the organization's success. And the stigma quickly vanishes when people recognize that learning to manage stressors and eliminate distraction is a huge performance advantage. And it might be becoming a better dad. It might be becoming a better husband. It might be becoming a better firefighter. It might be just becoming a better person. You don't know what that's going to look like until you go through it. So, who are my golfers? Golfers. Do you have a coach or did you take lessons? No? So you're at the driving range and you hit 1,000 balls, right? Some of those are going to end up breaking windows. Some of them are going into the opposite course, not even a different hole. Still do. Exactly. Anybody else? Any more golfers? Did you take lessons?
No.
Did anyone take lessons as a golfer? Or have somebody encourage them or guide them in golfing? I am a terrible golfer. I probably stopped golfing about 5 years ago because I was so terrible at it. I mean, I love that scene from Tin Cup where Kevin Costner hits the long drive and he's really, really happy with it, and the other guy comes in and he turns and he knocks it into the road and bang, 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 goes down the road. That's me on almost every single shot. I mean, I am shanking. I am putting holes in windows. It's a good thing that I'm not on one of those pretty courses that have all the really nice houses that are going up and down it, because that's going to end very, very poorly for me. So we have an athletic performance coach. What those coaches are going to do is they're going to evaluate your swing, right? They're going to change your grip. They're going to change your stance. They're going to change your swing. They're going to look so close at the details of how you're hitting this ball. And I mean, like I said, I can go out there and hit 1,000 balls and I'll probably improve about 5%, 10%. Eventually, I'll probably start shanking as bad. But if I have a coach, after about 20 balls, I'm probably in the middle of the fairway. I'm probably hitting it further. And with the other strokes, the other clubs, everything else, I'm going to get better a whole lot faster, and I'm going to achieve my goal and break fewer windows than doing it by myself. So, having a personal performance coach, which is what we are as first responder coaches, we are that golf coach. We're going to take a close look at the person that you are. We're going to make little adjustments to your mindset, little adjustments to the way that you approach things. And instead of hitting that golf ball, I mean, how many broken windows do you want with your kids? How many times are you going to cause damage in a marriage or a relationship or to the people that you care about before, that game walks away from you? So, we've got a gap. We've identified that what we need and what we have are light years away. And so my fire chief has some thoughts about that, on how we're going to approach mental illness. And one of my favorite things that he says is that mental illness should be no different than a broken bone. We have an injury. One of the trends I see now is that people are no longer calling it post-traumatic stress disorder. They're either just calling it post-traumatic stress, or my personal favorite that I'm gravitating toward is a post-traumatic stress injury, because I feel like that better sums up what we experience. You go on a nasty call. You see some horrific things. That's an injury. That's something that you're not going to forget. It's going to stick with you. And at least with a broken bone, you can get it x-rayed, you can get it set, you can get it placed. 4 to 6 weeks, you're out doing your thing. Some of the things that we see as first responders, 4 to 6 weeks, yeah, right. 4 to 6 years, your entire lifetime, it's there.
22 years.
Now, Chief White is directly addressing mental health in the firefighting world.
Historically, it's something that we don't typically talk about. In fact, when I started in the way Navy, you just didn't talk about this. You just sucked it up. You just rub it off, kid, because you're going to have to, get back in there.
And he's hoping to change that. He says getting mental health help should be just as accepted and easy as getting help for a broken bone.
We need to open this conversation more. We actually have a goal that this would just be treated like other illnesses or injuries. Ultimately, if somebody's having a hard time dealing with the stresses of our occupation, that they would seek help and get healthy, because that's really all we really want.
And ultimately stop the stigma that mental health problems need to be hidden. Now, Robbie's funeral will be tomorrow afternoon in Henderson. The public is welcome. What's special about this service is he's being honored in a line of duty memorial, which means the department made the decision to treat this as a line of duty death because the issues he struggled with stemmed from his career, which is actually fairly unique for a suicide that typically would not be considered a line of duty death. Yes.
So our department took a lot of heat for that. That's not normal. Somebody takes their own life, traditionally, that's not a job death. You did that to yourself. So what our department did is they were one of the first departments in the nation to identify Robbie's death as a line of duty death. And, it's an expensive decision. It's a labor-intensive decision. Like that's really, really difficult. I mean, when I joined the fire service, I thought the coolest thing would be to go to one of those big funerals and see all the processions and everything else. And then my captain died of throat cancer, and I went to a funeral, and I never want to go to another firefighter's funeral for as long as I live. And it's hard. So, the Yellow Ribbon Report sent out gave a lot of recommendations. The first one, to explore and identify the reasons for changes in motivation in yourself or others so that they can be addressed before they grow. I mean, how many people come to work? They've either gained a lot of weight or they've lost a lot of weight. They've pulled themselves back from the group, or they're just all of a sudden the life of the party. Those subtle changes that we see can be a hint. Like, take them aside. Hey, bro, you're a little different. What's going on? Identify effective techniques that will help you reduce your stress. And it can be something simple. It can be going for a walk. It can be just sitting down and turning off the screens, turning off the phone, turning off the TV, and just sitting and just processing your thoughts. One of the exercises we're going to do after our break is called a thought download. The thought download is amazing. Just dump everything in your mind out on paper and take a look at it. And if you don't like what you see, crumble it up, throw it away, do it again. And just get it all down there. And sometimes that self-awareness that you get is really, really awesome. Learn to view problems or challenges through a different lens. How could you possibly think about this differently? Communicate your own feelings and fears. Like that Paul Combs art, sign around his neck. We shouldn't have to wear a sign around our neck saying that we need help. We should find that person that we trust, whether it's in the fire service or out. Find somebody, say something, and get that ball rolling. Say, hey, I'm not doing so hot. I'm struggling at home. I'm struggling at work. I've got this thing going on. Is it okay if I bend your ear for a minute? So, and identify the resources that would be helpful for your recovery for trauma. As a first responder coach, we want to be one of those resources. We want to be ready, available, eager to support your firefighters. Because sometimes it's a whole lot easier talking to a stranger. You got somebody else that you know that comes in the room, they bring all their baggage with them. Oh yeah, he said that one thing that one time. He did me dirty, so I'm not going to listen to him. And we judge their ability to help us through these situations before they even open their mouth. And that can be hard. And so sometimes seeing someone that's relatable, that has a little bit of training, has a lot of desire to help you on the other side of a screen can be absolutely amazing. And so coaching can help in all of those things. And even on page 45, they suggested a PTSD coach, a family coach, a mindfulness coach, anger management, and couples coaches. So coaching is out there. The IAFC, they know about it. We just have to bring it to people so that they can see that difference. So I've talked about coaching a little bit. What is first responder coaching? Coaching is a technique that uniquely focuses on maximizing your personal and professional potential. And it creates and nurtures growth mindset for a full and productive life and provides tools needed for coping with the day-to-day struggles. There's really nothing in the fire service right now that's going to help you at home. We got great people at work. If you want to go through a promotion, you want to learn something about the truck, you want to learn something more, you want to advance your career, we've got lots of great resources. I attended Utah Valley University's bachelor's program. I got my bachelor's in emergency services administration. That was a fantastic program. I'm so grateful that I went through that process. That's helped me out tremendously in my career. But if I come back to my station and I tell somebody that I got a problem, they're probably going to make fun of me, which I probably deserve. So what first responder coaching isn't counseling, it's not mentoring, and it's not therapy. It doesn't analyze the past. It focuses on the present and the future and helps people that are ready to move forward in their lives. And I love that analogy because one of the analogies that people use is we're not so concerned about the why, but we want to focus on the how and the what, and how we can move them forward and what we can do today in a half-hour session of talking about what it is that we can do to make positive steps forward to make this change. So, what are some of the benefits of coaching? We're going to build stronger connections with your department and at home. We're going to open up those vital lines of communication. We're going to create balance, that elusive balance at life and at home. We'll do an exercise later about balance. And we're going to find true happiness with those who you are and who you want to become. Coaching is phenomenal for setting goals. We can identify all those barriers. We can push you through those roadblocks. So many people come up to where it's just getting a little bit uncomfortable and they pull back. Coaching, you're going to blow right through those and become your best self and create the life you have always wanted. So, what services do we offer? We offer one-on-one coaching sessions over Zoom. And they're anywhere from 30 to 90 minutes. And the best way to make positive change is to schedule one 30-minute coaching session a week. Each session is going to build and build and build. And at the end of about 3 months, you're going to see massive change, and your awareness of what's going on with your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, and being able to predict and plan for your results is phenomenal. Brand new, we have the ability for departments and organizations to purchase packages of 25 session packages all at once and be able to give a link to their firefighters, reduce that barrier to entry. You get a link, you click on a time, you show up at your session, coaching, done. We're making it as easy and as frictionless as possible. And we have group coaching sessions. Once a week, we have a peer coaching session. It's the cheapest and easiest way to just listen and to maybe have a couple different conversations with people during that time. As I said, peer coaching is the gold standard in departments. But like I said, sometimes we pull back when it comes to talking with people that we know, and talking with strangers can be a lot easier. And we have the ability for you to become a certified first responder coach, certified. If you share my passion, if you are a mentor, if you're a person that looks out for others, you're always looking down to help somebody up, get some training, get some more tools, go back to your department, be your department's go-to person, build your own program, use the tools, the equipment, the support that we have to bring coaching to your department through you. And if you want, you can come work for us and you can have the ability to coach people all across the nation. So what happens during a coaching session? You hop on Zoom. Pants encouraged. You are the client, are in charge of the meeting. You bring whatever you want. I got something at work that's bugging me. I got something at home that's bothering me. I got something that I want to achieve. Or bring nothing at all. Those are some of my favorite sessions. I sit down with somebody on a computer. I was like, hey bro, what you got for me? And he's like, I got nothing, I'm good. It's like, I got you. Let's start peeling back some layers. Let's get into it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk. And then I'm like, man, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And one of the cool things about coaches is that I'm going to approach it with compassion. I'm going to approach our meeting with curiosity. And part of it is I'm not going to believe your story. And I'm going to push you to the point where I'm going to ask you a question about yourself that you don't know the answer to. And one of my favorite things as a coach is like, man, that's a good question. I never thought of that. That's like, I got it. Now we can start growing. So, a lot of departments, CASD. Some programs do it in-house. Some folks outsource it. But CASD is only typically used after traumatic events. Your attendance is usually not optional. It's in a group setting. Like I said, that group setting can be awesome, or it can be a hindrance. It's rare to have follow-up. Any of the CISD programs that I've been through, everybody gets a card. Here's a card. Call us if you need us. The end. And then you're like, hey, bro, what'd you think of that call? It's like, awesome. And it's specific to what happens on the job. Coaching, done at the time of your choosing. It is not as a result of an acute stressor. Sometimes 24, 48, 72 hours after a really, really tough call, the last thing we want to do is talk about that call. But once we chew on it a little bit and we kind of start working our way through it, we just want to talk about it. Get some of that stuff off our chest. And it's optional. It's private. It's confidential. One-on-one. Nobody in the world has to know that you're getting coached. Even your departments, that if they purchase those packages, they'll know how many have been used, but we're not sharing that information of who's using it unless your department sets in advance a limit to the number that each member has access to. And it's for any reason at all, at home or at work. So, we're close to death by PowerPoint here. Getting to the final stretch here. So, what are some healthy mind and body self-care techniques? Exercise. Exercise is awesome, but not when you're doing it to avoid the feelings that you're feeling. A lot of people will go to the gym not because they want to get ripped, get built. They go there because they don't want to be at home. They don't want to go to their job. They don't want to deal with those feelings that they're feeling, so they burn it up in the gym and they're able to kind of cope a little bit better. So be aware of that. Those buffering techniques are some things that we can talk about in a coaching session, and we can identify those factors. Sleep is so critical. When I was in Bristol Bay, Alaska, the sun did this. 2 o'clock in the morning, you could read a book. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you go do whatever you want, as long as you're avoiding the mosquitoes, because they're terrible. State bird. Sleep, critical. I'm on a busy rescue. We get our butt kicked. We are up 2, 3, 4 times a night after midnight, almost every single shift, both on the engine and the rescue. When I get home, I am zonked. The first day of my 4-day is a waste. Come home, take a nap, go to bed early. It's a lot. Nutrition, drink lots of water. We're in the desert. We don't drink enough water. Like 50% of the calls that we run, they're either directly due to dehydration, or because of dehydration, they've triggered a pre-existing underlying condition. So as a first responder, we have to be well hydrated. And be mindful of those diets that are high in sugar and flour. We have so many different autoimmune things that we don't even know about. But if we can reduce the amount of sugar and flour in our diet and try to prioritize veggies, our body is going to be doing so much better. Limit technology usage. I bet every single person in this room could go on their little screen time app, and it's probably going to say 3 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours. Maybe you could use that as an indicator. If you're spending 6 hours a day staring at technology, you're probably doing that to avoid thinking or doing something else. And as a coach, I love digging into that. So if you weren't looking at your phone right now, what would you be doing? Or because you're looking at your phone, what are you not doing? And sometimes we just want to zone away and scroll through Instagram or listen to a YouTube or whatever, and it's great. But when it gets excessive, we're usually doing it to avoid something. And connect with others, whether it's your friends at work, friends in the neighborhood, religious affiliation, clubs. Find your tribe. Find those people that you enjoy doing stuff with. And it's even better if it's outside of work. My favorite group of friends, not a single one of them is a first responder. And it's fantastic. And last, stay positive. So because your thoughts become your results, think positive thoughts, and you'll have positive results. So one final thought, we'll take a break, and 10, 15 minutes, we'll probably come back at the top of the hour at 10 o'clock, and I've got an exercise for us to do that is awesome, and it's all about you guys. I don't have to jammer in more. So who is the one person or the group in the department that needs the help the most? What is your plan on how you're going to get them their help? First responder coaching has the tools needed to improve your member's life at home and at work. And what can we do and how can we support your fire department family? So let's take a break. So our goal is to be back top of the hour at 10 o'clock. And we have a really cool group coaching exercise. And then we'll wrap it up. Thanks for coming.